don't get emotional up here. So I just want to thank you so much for being with us, honoring our babies together. This is our first one here in the inner city. And just wow, just look at you all. Just thank you for being with us tonight. A couple housekeeping things. The restrooms are outside the two doors and then to the left. To your left when you go out that door. I hope by now that you've silenced your phones. Have you silenced your phones?
Yes.
And then has anyone ever participated in a wave of light? Anyone? Raise your hands real high if you've ever participated in a wave of light. Okay. Then the rest of you, oh my goodness, you are in for a treat because it is always a loving environment to honor our babies. So with that said, I am going to pass this mic over to Dr. James, who is going to lead us in the opening prayer. Dr. Arthur James.
Sam gave me this assignment about an hour ago. So, thank you all for being here. Please know that I've been involved in efforts to save babies for more than 30 years. This is both hard, H-A-R-D, and heart-wrenching work. Both the saving babies, but especially trying to figure out how to appropriately honor the families and loved ones represented here tonight. So tonight we come together for the inaugural memorial event by First Year Cleveland to remember little ones who are no longer physically here with us, but who have never left our hearts. We also acknowledge families and loved ones who struggle to reconcile with such a precious loss. The prayer is also for those community members who do this difficult work and often thankless work. Having had long and difficult conversations with many families over the years and recurring conversations with God, trying to cope with the transition we are challenged to face, many years ago I wrote a prayer that I often revisit and that I would like to share with you tonight. The prayer is entitled, strangely enough, a prayer of gratitude. Every child, every opportunity, every time. So if you would bow your heads as I read, the prayer is as follows. Dear Lord, even during times when we lack understanding, when we feel overwhelmed and in despair, we are grateful for the opportunity to be involved in this work. We hope and pray that what we say and do and think is done in a manner pleasing to you. For those of us doing this work, we expect to be difference makers, not because there is anything spectacular about us, but because we pursue this work trying to represent you. When others cannot discern an answer, please give us insight and understanding. When the task seems insurmountable, help us to remember to seek the solution prescribed by you. When chaos is prevalent, let us hear your voice, adhere to your guidance, so peace prevails. When death is in the midst, provide us with your comfort and counsel and help us to help others, especially those surviving the deceased. Help us to help them find you and the comfort and love that is found in your embrace. Whenever, wherever, and for whomever there is a need, we want to be found in the middle of the mix doing your work. We have been struggling to do this long enough that we know we can accomplish nothing without you. In spite of the challenges, even with all of the obstacles, regardless of the abundance of discouragement, we persevere because we appreciate that this is your assignment for us and we want nothing more than to do our part in your work. We know that as long as we are fulfilling your assignment, that we cannot fail, that someone is going to be helped, that the location we work in, the people that we work with, and those for whom we have been doing this work for will all be better off because of our perseverance. So despite how inadequate we feel during events such as this, despite feeling that others do not adequately appreciate the contribution of the work we struggle to do, despite the hollowness we feel and the lack of support we sometimes feel, the awkward attempts of others to comfort us, the long days, our feeble efforts trying to help family, especially surviving children, understand the loss of their siblings, the sleepless nights, the endless questions, the constant opposition. Despite all there is about moments like this that challenge us individually, as a family, as an organization and community, we are grateful for moments to acknowledge the little ones that we have lost, and as a community to provide support to their families. We appreciate the opportunity to let our friends and neighbors know that we remember with them and that we will do all within our power to decrease the risk of other families experiencing similar loss. So Lord, on this day and every day, with every step we take, with each word we speak, with every breath we breathe, we pray for each and every little one that we have lost and their families and loved ones. And we pray for this community's efforts to comfort the families represented here tonight. We also ask that you strengthen all of First Year Cleveland. Despite all the challenges, we are grateful for our assignment, and we thank you for this work. Amen.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. James. We really appreciate that. At this time, we bring up Evelyn Butler, solo artist. The name of the song is You Can Begin Again.
How's everybody doing tonight? We're so honored to be here. We're honored to be here tonight. And I'm so honored that my sister Nicole Berry invited us to sing tonight. We feel your hearts. We want you to know that there's nothing impossible. There's nothing that you can't do over again. And God is not finished with you yet. Turn the next chapters of your life and move on and watch what he's going to do for you. Okay? This is You Can Begin Again. No matter where you left off at, pick it up and start over again. Anytime you stop, you let the enemy come in and put thoughts in your head. But you can begin again. Be encouraged. God
Someone told me about a year or so ago, they said, if you were to write, "I lost a baby" on a sign, and you stood on any corner in most of our neighborhoods, you would be shocked how many people would come to you to share their story. And I didn't know if I fully believed that or could get my head around that or not, but through the work that Samantha Pierce is doing, Sabrina, Tracy, First Year Cleveland, it's clear that this problem of infant mortality is a big one, and many folks in our communities have been suffering in silence for a long time. And through their work, that's going to stop. If you look around, you may not recognize a lot of people in the room. I recognize some of them, and know that there are elected officials here. There are payers here, healthcare payers, there are healthcare providers here, there are academicians here, so your voices are being heard. About 6 months or so ago, I decided to see if we could hear directly from our community members, and stood up something we call Battle for Our Babies, right? And Battle for Our Babies started as a spoken word and visual arts competition. And so we wanted to hear from community members, both adult and youth. And kind of like tonight, it was an avalanche of folks who wanted to express themselves around infant mortality, both youth and adult. And so tonight, we have the top three finishers of the Battle for Our Babies spoken word contest with us. And you're going to hear from each of them. And we're going to start by introducing Martinique Mims. Okay? Martinique is third place in Battle for Our Babies. And just a little bit about Martinique. She's a community member in 44128, one of the highest infant mortality rates in the county, if not the state. She's getting her bachelor's degree, or has her bachelor's degree in mass communication and media studies. And again, she was third place in Battle for Our Babies. Had a beautiful piece. Martinique, please come on.
Thank you all for having me here. This is a special event. And I wanted to first kind of explain the poem that I wrote. It is basically letting you know the facts about what is happening in our community, and like you said, where I live. But also showing you that we are a village, and once we all kind of understand, we're aware of what's going on, we can move forward. The poem is entitled, How Strong Are We When We Know We're the Solution? How strong is a village when it knows it's the solution? How strong is a village when it never knows what it's losing? Last year in America, over 23,000 seeds were planted, and before, in 9 months, they all never got a chance to bloom. Flowers that never got a chance to see the sun. Treasures always lost and never found. Gifts always wrapped and never opened. These gems are our babies, and some of them won't get to experience the balloons, the cars, or the cake, because most of them were born too early, possibly just a little too late. And even if they survive after 24 hours, die before their first birthday. The number of deaths per 1,000 lives is a stick that measures mortality. We leave the world in healthcare spinning, but our babies die twice the rates as other developed countries. Why? Prematurity, birth defects, sudden infant death syndrome, the defects of a mother after delivery never showed, the stress levels of a mother that rose, SIDS having so many hospitals but no babies in beds, parents not knowing, not seeing, not having access to. What does it mean to have access to healthcare, prenatal, Medicaid, Medicare, access granted, or access denied? Get out your cameras and take a look into the historical lens, because it's imperative for explaining why we have so many differences. Race and income levels account for the disparities leading to infant mortality, because 40% of babies are born black, but contribute 70% of the babies who die within the first year of life. Black babies die at 3 times the rate of whites. There is a disconnect, so I want us to reflect. Think about mirrors. Mirrors project, and when they are blurred, sometimes we don't know what we can't see. We represent a mirror covered and unseen. One shot at the pieces reflect the broken families of babies they won't see. Cuyahoga County is ranked one of the highest for infant mortality, and the leading cause of death is prematurity. I never knew. I didn't know. How can I be amongst the living and never know? It takes a village, they say, to raise a child. Well, it takes the city, the county, the state, the family, and neighbors to know that raising a child is more than just the surface. You gotta do it with a purpose. A village grows from the start of its roots, from the soil, the earth, and the circumstances. What surrounds and goes through is a process we hold on to. A village needs support to nourish and flourish and sprout access to the good they have from within. We know the causes and the effects. This is no longer a math problem, because the problem should have never existed. It's up to all of us to solve it. So, how strong is a village when it now knows it carries the solution?
Where's Dr. J? Folks learn a lot of this from you, sir. Okay? Seriously. Up next, at number 2, finisher at Battle for Our Babies, is Nyla Mohammed. Nyla is very close to this subject matter. She's a community health worker. And when we asked her why she wanted to join the campaign. She stated, "I wanted to use my poetic words as a way to communicate what I witness in the community daily. As a black mother, I felt it was my duty to make a change and raise awareness by sharing facts about our black babies and the infant mortality crisis that plagues them." Let's hear it, please, for Nyla Mohammed.
Good evening. I am so grateful to be able to be here to read today. The poem that I wrote is called The Light. And the reason why I entitled it The Light is because in this adventure called life, even in some of the darkest times, we must fight to see the light. Before the light came, it was the absolute darkest that it had ever been. Sad times I had experienced prior barely bared any comparison to the pain that I felt then. Everything else that I ever felt mattered before simply didn't matter anymore. Simple joys that once gifted me smiles couldn't find their way to feed my empty soul anymore before the light came. Before the light came, rest never greeted me as I laid me down to sleep. And when I finally rose in the morning, I could barely feel the floor under my feet, the air never fully filling my lungs when I breathed, my weary mind never resting, my teary eyes never clear, my ears unable to hear, so heavy as the only emotion present was grief before the light came. Before the light came, I didn't want to be with people, but could not find a way to be in my own skin. It is a very hopeless place when you need to find peace and you cannot even go within. At the start of the day, you just barely breathe, waiting for the end of the day to arrive, wishing for a moment you can go back to a time when your spirit felt alive. Before the light came. But in that moment, that feeling that you crave simply is not here. Facing the reality of what you cannot change, praying for the grace of some serenity to be near, praying for some type of understanding to make its way into your soul, praying for some strength to manifest itself and overtake the weariness in your heart to once again make you feel whole before the light came. So I prayed for the light, praying to find a smile again even though I cannot find a reason, praying for some understanding of what I am to learn in this painful season, praying to find some happiness in the fact that we were blessed to be with one another, even if it was for a very short time. Praying for the ability to think of the love I will always have for you, silence the screams and embrace the calm of the blessing of a peace of mind. When the light came, then one day, something happened. There was a shift that began to grow inside of me, one that I cannot explain. The light made its way through my entire body and I did not feel the same. Each day, I cried a little bit less than I did the day before. Then one day I was able to stand firmly, feeling more grounded each day just a little bit more. I decided to answer some calls that had left unanswered for weeks. And I even joined into a conversation or two when someone asked me to speak. I would venture out and go places with people, even if it was just for a little while. And if someone said something that was funny, I even managed to muster up a smile because the light came. And eventually, I was doing things that I was blessed to do every day. My life becoming a little bit more manageable slowly but surely every day. And even now, I find times in the stillness of the day to think of you. I allow myself to feel the feelings that I still have for you because the light came. And I have finally realized that the love that I have for you will always be real. The one thing that no one can take away from me is my ability to feel. I'm able to choose to have faith in God and rise above my sorrow. Experience the happiness I know that you will want for me to have and see the light and the promise of tomorrow. Because from the moment of conception, you fulfilled your own divine purpose, even if it is beyond my comprehension. And even on tired days, I will continue to embrace this light I feel, and my pain will lessen. You were a part of me, and you always will be. So I'm thankful to God that He granted me the grace of this serenity. And your light will always shine bright in my heart and in my mind, shining through me. And I will walk every day of my life in your light for the entire world to see the light.
Just
really quickly. I know that this is very emotional. If you see your neighbor and need a hug, by all means, give your neighbor a hug. If there's no one around, you just raise your hand. Someone will come and comfort you. Okay? Silence.
Okay, so I want to introduce this next gentleman. He was the first place winner for Battle for Our Babies, and his name is Samuel Pitts. Samuel is a minister and a motivational speaker who told us that the inspiration for writing this piece was formed by his own lack of knowledge on the subject of infant mortality, which quickly transformed into a personal journey to understanding infant mortality and the causes for it. With that, Samuel Pitts, please.
Good evening. When I wrote this piece, I wrote it to address my community, and that's what I discovered in my research. But rest assured, I do understand that stress is unbiased, and it can attack any race, any culture, and it can have the same effect. When I was approached about my understanding of infant loss, I must admit, I was appalled by my ignorance. I was taken back by the questionnaire that questioned me on my knowledge of infant mortality, and my response was somewhere between bubble 1 and bubble 3. But out of embarrassment, I gave myself a 4, but the truth is, it was still not much of any. I mean, I was clueless to the Cartier despair that added to the leading cause of infants dying suddenly because of wrong bed or sleep positioning, until I heard the testimony of his grandmother's grief as she cried in disbelief because a part of her heart was now missing, a void which was once considered filled by a vital piece. Never experienced the pain of twin piercings in my side like the 2 piercings took, because they didn't know that their priority was prioritizing their stress. Now this lingering cloud of doom looms and constantly reminds them and redefines to them their 2 bundles of joy is too taken, gone too soon, deceased. But how would she know? How would he know? I mean, stresses are ordinary, that's all that we know. That's why they can call it natural causes. Because it's natural for us to stress ourselves to gain or maintain what we need and suppress ourselves and press on without taking any breaks, rest, or pauses. It's our normality. This stress kills, we now see. Especially in pregnancy. It kicks mothers into labor prematurely, causing babies to be born in an underdeveloped form. That's what we call an anomaly. Preterm birth rates that deviate from an expected similarity in the statistics of SIDS that's supposed to be dispersed evenly throughout the cultural diversities, which only depicts a consistency of irregularities and people particularly know to be of a dark complexity. I just put that lightly, creatively, because I try to express cultural sensitivity. But it does appear that the culture that's mostly affected is the one that closely identifies with my identity. Pardon me, as I put it more directly, there is no diversity in this disparity. How about we stop being so passive-aggressive on this surface tension and start digging deeply into this disparity more aggressively? Or how about we just research race matters and see if race really matters? Then we'll know we can investigate Jim Crow to know if we should yield to the notion that there's an unfair playing field. It might just explain the cause of low health literacy, early prenatal inconsistency. And they ask the question, and my answer is yes. Preferential toxic stress on a particular type of people is indeed influential. But in research and comparison, we fail to look through that lens. But it's through that particular lens that's imperative for explaining the outcome and influences of 13% of every other race versus 87% of the intense black experience. That historical situation has been impacting us and influencing us for generations. And with each successful female fetus celebration, we must still add 3 more stressful generations. And then our addition celebration becomes a problem of multiplication. So we must examine and reduce these numbers drastically. By overachieving in our abilities and not underperforming when it comes to addressing these disparities, especially in our communities. It's going to take a village of thriving support, a strong economical base, and an inviting environment of sorts. So all aboard, that's the invitation. All on board. Join the movement. Let's take action to protect our babies. Let's campaign for awareness. Everybody repeat after me. Say campaign.
Campaign.
For awareness.
For awareness.
But while we're campaigning for awareness, let us not forget to petition for mindfulness. Mindfulness for the sake of remembrance, and remembrance for the sake of reminding us to maintain the thoughts of our children in the forefront of our consciousness, so that we never forget or diminish the possibility of their endless legacies that were confiscated from us, taken too quickly, blotted out from our history. I'm talking about legacies that could have been left by our unborn or little ones that was only here with us briefly. Whether deceased or ceased to have existed, none should be omitted. Just because the breath of life that they emitted was not strong enough to overcome that overwhelming calamity, that period of adversity, that period of adverse incubation, no matter the brevity in their womb or the brevity on this earth's surface, every life's capacity is worthy of a celebration, so that's why tonight we light those lights. To help create a pathway of memoirs, so that we can create a pathway to their memory. One that's sustained in an annual, continual, eternal flame. So as we progress to light these candles all around the world, we will create a global wave of light that will rise and propagate as we conjugate to recall and reflect, reminisce and recollect, while those candles that we lit, they'll stand tall and burn in loving memory of our babies. God bless you and God keep you.
Thank you so much to each of you. Thank you so much for blessing us with your words. I'm going to bring up Sabrina Roberts, who is just going to give us some ending remarks before we begin the candle lighting. We're a little bit behind, but I think that that's okay.
Good evening. Good evening. So my job is to thank you. So Sam, don't go too far. First, my name is Sabrina Roberts. I work at Cuyahoga County Government in the Department of Health and Human Services, and my affiliation is I'm co-chair of this committee on Diverse Year Cleveland. I co-chair along with Tracy Carter from Metro Health System. She's in the back in a white sweater. We are humbled every day, and our steps are ordered in this work. So we are just proud to lead this effort with our parents. First and foremost, I would like to thank the parent committee. Sam led the parent committee. It was Yolanda, Cheryl, and Nikki with Sam. And Sam, you don't have to take it now, but we have a bouquet for you, so you can take it later. For the other moms on the committee, those large vases in front here, those are yours. So we appreciate all your hours of hard work, phone calls in the middle of the night, weekends. Secondly, I would like to thank the First Year Cleveland staff, headed by Bernadette Kerrigan. She's over in the purple. And again, all those calls, laughing and text. We appreciate your whole team. They're out helping register, set up. We appreciate all of you. To First Year Cleveland Executive Committee. That's the group who had a vision to come together and develop these 11 action teams. We're one action team out of 11. So to the executive committee, we thank you. and the people who funded the executive committee, like the county government. We have, I know, Councilman Brown in the back. Thank you for your funding. And the city of Cleveland, the mayor's office, city council headed by President Kevin Kelly. We would also like to thank the Adams Board. It was interesting, when Tracy and I reached out to them, it was probably 24 hours, they said, no problem. So we thank the Adams Board and Sisters of Charity Foundation. They were very quick with funding, so we appreciate that. To Lucas Funeral Home, very dear friends of mine, Yolanda and Jason, for the arrangements and the programs, we thank you for your contribution. And a special thank you to Chris Romaine, from President of Universal Circle, Inc. At 7 o'clock, the bells are ringing at the Church of the Covenant, so we thank them for that. Silas and his team, you've heard from Silas, thank you so much. The poets, the singers, we appreciate your time. The Cleveland Botanical Gardens, thank you for your lovely space. It's been great working with you. And finally, you all, families, thank you for spending your evening with us. Thank you for opening your hearts. Thank you for just being here. This is the beginning of a journey, and we appreciate you spending time with us. And I am going to turn it over to Sam, but first, Ethan and Sean, we're going to start the ceremony. So, Nicole and Samantha.